welcome to another introduction to a place up in the sky of Dragon Ball where everything is much more relaxed, but we also like to find out a little bit of facts as well, as we just chill out and learn more up on the lookout. Now, for those of you who don't know, Up on the Lookout is a Dragon Ball podcast with a difference. Here, we wish to just politely discuss things that have been going on in the Dragon Ball universe, whilst not trying to overload people with information that might seem like a bit of information dumping, as it were. But having said that, at the same time, this chapter has been something that has been quite revolutionary for the actual medium itself. And to discuss this with me, I am joined by my ever-present sidekick, Haverock.
Hello, I'm Haverock and I'm prepared for the worst, but hope for the best.
Yes, and I think we have plenty to discuss here about this chapter, but if you wish to help contribute to the ever-going voyage of Up on the Lookout, you can become a caretaker of the Lookout by going to marsico.cc/lookout, information down in the description of your podcasting platform of choice. So let's not beat about the bush here, and let's get started. Okay, I think we don't need to beat about the bush anymore about this chapter, but chapter 69, it's really breaking the mold of what we've come to expect with Toyotaro chapters. This has been Haverock's theory, especially with the Moro saga, is that Toyotaro would have a good chapter and then a really bad one or middling chapter for the next one. But here it's just been on the up, hasn't it?
Yeah. Like again, I feel like, Toriyama and Toyotaro came across and decided to do something together and write it together in a very well fashion. I know that there is one thing particularly that disappointed a lot of people, and I want to get to this because I think that things are not as they seem. I am still in the early enough that I can defend it. We'll see if it expands further. But other than that, it was pretty good.
Okay. Yeah, we'll be definitely discussing a lot in this chapter because even when I was writing my main review for it on my YouTube channel, it was a lot of information to go through. Like, there was the first half of the chapter was mainly text, but in a good way, as in it was really the characters going in depth as to what to expect. And then the second half was relatively quick, in comparison. And I suppose really, this was just something really, really different to what Dragon Ball's been doing. I mean, since it began. And we will be doing a discussion video going into this next week, because this is something we really need to talk about. And it's part of our theory that Granolah is Jiren 2.0, quite frankly. It's what Jiren should have been. It's got the backstory, it's got the empathy for what we want, everything that Jiren wasn't. I mean, not even the manga Jiren. I mean, the manga version of Jiren was way better than the anime version. I mean, that's not really saying much, but yeah, the difference needs to be mentioned here. But we got to go back to something we'll probably touch on first. Granolah. Not only a really healthy part of a nutritious breakfast, but also something really healthy for the Dragon Ball franchise itself, wouldn't you say?
He has such a different introduction from most of the characters in the anime and on the show. Again, the closest one I think was Piccolo Jr., but even Piccolo Jr. wasn't as sympathetic when he was introduced. This guy will go bad one way or another, and you are starting to be worried. Oh, I hope he gets back to his senses. There are those flaws that you can see that can lead to their downfall, but there is also good stuff, and you also feel you don't want this guy to fall too much,
Yeah, no, this is definitely, to me, a follow-up to how Broly was handled, because it's that same sentiment, as you said, that you feel for the character and you don't want them to come to harm. With Broly, I mean, that movie, Goku was really nothing in it, and we were mainly chanting for Broly to do well and be okay. And when it looked like he was about to be killed, he wasn't. But even at that point, it was like, no, don't get rid of him. Don't get rid of him. He's really cool. Like, because we understood him more. And I feel like Toriyama has just thought, oh, well, this worked with Broly. Why don't we use this with an original character this time, like a brand new one, and really go into things without the burden of the former Broly's legacy, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, they have certainly watched The Mandalorian and are using The Mandalorian's success. You won't convince me otherwise, because it has very similar vibes, but it's not like Dragon Ball has always done this, so it's not a huge problem. Like, the thing I think that we need to get across, it's not like, they're doing anything revolutionary in terms of pop culture as a whole, but for Dragon Ball, it's a huge step.
It's a really big one. I mean, but as you say with Mandalorian, you may as well have if Yamamoto was still on the soundtrack, you'd probably get the thing, like, Mandalorian vibes, but, would he really try and pull a fast one on Disney? Well, I mean, you never know. I mean, he did a lot of stuff. In a little tangent here, I actually tried to contact the agents of the German electronica band that he ripped off for loads of Trunks' themes for propaganda. Those tracks are really good, and the plagiarism for Battle Power Unlimited is so blatant. It's a mixture of 3 songs from the band Propaganda. P Machinery, that's the da 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 da. It's just so obvious. But sorry, I just needed to say that here. Just in terms of musical things, connotations for what we can expect, and with Granolah, you sort of get that feeling of coolness and mystery from when we first saw Future Trunks. There's that youth to it, even though Granolah is not a young person. Granolah is probably at least in his 50s. He's at least 50 years old. But as we know, in space, aging on Earth is nothing like what it is in space.
Yeah. To me, he seems close to Vegeta, his equivalent of Vegeta. I feel that they are in similar age.
This chapter had a lot of information in it, and it wasn't handled in a very boring way, because the information that was on display here was mind-blowing for things that we'd just grown accustomed to.
It is great because it was both mind-blowing and obvious if you think about it. Again, the age-long problem of, how do, Vegeta, Raditz, and Nappa knew about Namekians if, the drought was 200 years ago and Namekians haven't left Namek since. How did they know? You start to think about it. Yeah, how did they know? Well, it turns out that either, the Namekians, some of the Namekians left Namek when they were still spacefaring, or they, or they didn't settle on Namek in the first place, We have that little tricky thing that Namekians are either related to some other force, or they just came from Universe 6, which is even cooler,
Yeah. And one thing that made me think about it, and it was a dubism almost, from actually the Lord Slug movie, that those evil Namekians were like nomads, as in they just traveled around the galaxy. And it turns out that that's not as unusual as now we know. It's there were probably loads of splinter factions of Namekians on now different planets, and probably it means that there's
more Dragon Balls,
or at least a few more.
People are why there are Dragon Balls? Why wouldn't they? If there are settlements of Namekians and they have the Dragon clans, they can create Dragon Balls. Like on Earth.
Yeah, and if they're Dragon Clan members, they probably live longer than Warrior Clan members, because obviously they don't get themselves in sticky situations. And it actually makes me think, will we one day see a Namekian with 8 Dragon Balls to go with the whole Hakenden thing where there were 8 pearls? And Toriyama decided to make it 7 just to not copy it too much. So I wonder if we'll see that one day.
Or, or one.
That one, wow. Okay.
How would that work? But
for a lazy Namekian, I don't feel like making many Dragon Balls. Let's just make one.
And the dragon is tiny, speaking about the dragon power, you can see that the cool looking dragon, it's smaller.
Yeah, and also a lot of people in the comments of my review rightly said that it looks like an axolotl, and I'm like, ooh, nice, I like that. And axolotls are really cute, and I'm like thinking this is a really cool dragon. And a lot of people in the comments were actually saying we probably have heard the name of the dragon in that incantation to arise the dragon. So it was a lot of people in the comments, and I can't remember the person that did it specifically, but if you're listening, then thank you for bringing that to my attention, because that is absolutely very valid, because, Granolah obviously knows the summoning ritual from Monaito.
Speaking of Monaito, do you know what his name is most likely based on? And it's so cool.
I was trying to think of what musical instrument could it...
Ammonite, the prehistoric squid snail. It's so cool.
I was going about a completely different direction. I thought it was something to do with musical instruments, but I'm like, oh man.
Only King Piccolo ones are musical instruments. Like those are slugs or mollusks. And that is so cool.
That is really cool. I mean, you heard it here, folks. Monaito is an ammonite, and axolotls are prehistoric creatures who have been around for hundreds of millions of years, I think. I need to check with Philly about that. But either way, I think because we're talking about the dragon, we need to talk about Granolah's wish. I really hope that it doesn't come to fruition. I want this to be a bit of a subversion because, why would they end the chapter at that point?
Oh, I'm sorry. Apparently we know the name of the dragon. It's Torombo. People find out that they mimic, Porunga's way of summoning. And it's Takarapto Poporunga Pupurito Paro for Porunga. Sorry for interrupting, but I found...
And incidentally, it's a nod to Link's Awakening. Torombo Shores.
Yeah, and it comes from trombone. Perhaps.
You see, we're learning things as we're going along. That's the beauty of it now. We're not stuck with lore from Daizenshu books from 25 years ago. As comprehensive and interesting as that is, it's nice to have new stuff. And new stuff which makes sense. Because as we've known from earlier Super chapters, we can have all the new lore that we want, but some of it doesn't make sense or doesn't have any historical and nostalgic value to it. This does. But I do also understand why a lot of people really don't like the fact there are not 7 Dragon Balls with this dragon, because it's just not what they're used to. I understand, but it does add the intrigue, and it does mean, with the number, does that mean that wishes are limited, or the power and scope of a dragon? Because this is only a small tribe of Namekians on planet Serial at the time, and Monaito is the only one left. So I feel like the power of this dragon is probably not enough to grant Granolah the power to become the greatest warrior of the universe. And this is why I believe in the wisdom of crowds, because the people in the comments also said there is a very big difference between the greatest warrior and the strongest warrior. And that is very true. So once again, you're listening to it, you know what you're talking about. So I do respect that, and I want to bring it to everybody's attention. But I really don't want Granolah to get the wish. I want this to be like, he has to go, well, okay then. Well, how about if I make the next step in my journey a bit easier then? Like, to facilitate the next part. Because if he got this, wish 3 or 4 chapters into the saga, and if it's 18 chapters long, really? You're not even at the halfway point? That's a bit quick. That's really quick.
We are shown that the dragon is smaller, that there are true Dragon Balls. I think that the point is that he has his limitations.
Or, again, from the comments, the monkey's paw effect. Granted, you've become the greatest warrior, but X, Y, and Z. I think for the moment, this is a great time to now move on to the meat and potatoes of, the vegetables of Dragon Ball, the Saiyans in this. Goku does not factor in this chapter really at all, except for being the window dressing that other characters ironically are when Goku shows up for things. He's just like, wow, Vegeta's power is really big, isn't it? Like, that kind of stuff. Because this is mainly, if not about Granolah, about Vegeta and Beerus.
And I do not complain that, we have less Goku in that chapter. I know that a lot of people say that the big reveal came up to be anticlimactic. But I have an explanation for that, if you think about this. Because we all expected it to be, the last fight between Vegeta and Beerus. But right now, I think that all Beerus is doing is... It's a one huge test, and like, okay, you want to be like me, you need to face with something. Because think about it. To me, becoming a god of distractions is to overcome your own pain and your own personal feelings, as Beerus said. And while Vegeta technically did, overcome a lot of his personal stuff, which is a nice continuation of the whole Namekian thing, when he said, I feel bad about the Namekians. I think Beerus purposely got his wound that about Planet Vegeta that was already mended because, hey, we defeated Frieza, we are stronger than Frieza, we can deal with it, to reveal, no, it wasn't Frieza, I am the one responsible. What are you going to do about it, little Saiyan? Prove me wrong, He threw him a challenge. This is a challenge. This isn't something to be solved in one chapter. This is something that will define Vegeta's journey in that chapter and maybe make him, oscillate towards Chill Jita from the end of Z. That's how I see it. It's not like throwing that away, but starting a new chapter in Vegeta's life. Like, we know that Beerus's pompous personality is a facade, because we've seen this facade drop, especially during TOP, during some more emotional moments, that Beerus, there is some good in Beerus, but I think on a certain level, Beerus realized he connects more to Vegeta than Goku. And what Beerus is doing right now is exactly what Vegeta did to Kaba in Universe 6 arc.
Well, yeah, there's more personal history between Beerus and Vegeta. And this is something we touch upon in our Videl What If. We make Vegeta the Super Saiyan God in that alternative story because there is a lot more history between those two characters. And it seems like this is now sort of being played out here, but in a different way. And that makes a lot more sense. And I think Beerus wants Vegeta to succeed. And I know he probably thinks that Vegeta won't become the next god of destruction, but to Beerus right now, in terms of the scale of how long he can live, this is a very, very interesting and fun distraction. Because if I'm going to be having to be awake for the next few decades, I may as well have some entertainment. The very fact, as you say, I mean, it's a very good point. That it's just to completely tear down what Vegeta's been thinking all this time and blaming Frieza for absolutely everything, to then actually feeling very complicated and that Beerus had something to do with this, and now having to honestly, because he doesn't really care about the Saiyans anymore, and he goes like, they did it to themselves, so he needs to actually go like, well, okay, I need to stand by those feelings and not have them change at all, because Beerus was the one to action it and not Frieza, and instead then just go like, okay, that was the thing, let's move on. It reminds me sort of like the One Last Hope song from Hercules. Beerus, so you want to be a God kid? Well, whoop-de-doo.
Because that cat loves his food.
Yeah. And I did love the fact there was another song on the Shigerian TV that, I need to get it up. And it's like akin to the whole, the universal anthem of like, space is really big. Sugar toast love, tasty breakfast. And just touching on the Shigerians, they are so cute. They are so cute. They're so nice. If you had the Yardratians and the Shigerians together, they'd be the most amiable society in existence.
Again,
like seriously.
Again, this is how to make an amiable, cute race. Like this is what those weird things from episode of Bardock should be in the Atlanteans. Like this is this done right,
But the Plantians, it was just like finding out that they were potentially pre-evolution of Saiyans or something like that. I was like, what? Hey? Just whatever it was. I mean, episode of Bardock is such a dumpster in a way. I mean, the only thing that people remember is the moment when Bardock went Super Saiyan. That's the only thing that people care about from that. You could just watch that 2-minute sequence of him beating up Chilled and you'd be done with it. That's all you need to watch. Yeah, it's so unusual to the stuff we've seen before. Granolah is something we actually care about. And it'll be something that would be really unfortunate to see if, Granolah actually ends up going mad because of his obsession. Like, we feel really, really sorry for him if he ends up having to be destroyed. And I think you touched upon this in our conversations, that you think that Vegeta will be the one to confront him. Why do you suspect that?
Because I feel, like those guys are obviously just opposite in this chapter. They're all like shown to be the oppositions. Like if you think about it, they have a lot in common. They are in similar age. They both lost their planets partially because of Frieza. They're both very prideful characters. But they both did bad things, but have a lot of good in them, And now they both have knowledge that a being that destroyed their homeworld is still around, and and it is kind of out of their league, The difference is that Vegeta was, part of the force that destroyed Granolah's planet, but there is a lot of stuff that they connect about. Like, if you think about it, they are both, carrying the legacy of the race, because it's hard to say that either Goku or Broly do, because they were too young and they don't really remember and they don't really care that much. But like Vegeta and Granolah may be the last ones who care about, at least a bit about, about their legacies.
Yeah. I would say so, absolutely. I mean, Goku obviously wants to fight strong guys and be remembered as such, have made an impact with his rivals. But as you say, Vegeta, even though he's trying to eschew that, it's part of his DNA and who he is. So it's going to be really hard to shake off. So, I mean, he's now going to have to by force, because he's not really had to. With Beerus is telling him, like, if you want this power, you're going to have to let go. I mean, I would say it's a parallel to what Kylo Ren was saying in The Last Jedi. Let the past die. Kill it if you must. I would mention that in like discussion scripts, but I know that I get a lot of flack from that. But it's something I still see a parallel there. Is that Beerus just saying, get over yourself. That is what Beerus is trying to tell him. And this is far different to what we thought in the last chapter, where Beerus was like saying, I'm not going to train you. You're just going to have to watch me do my morning stretches and stuff like that. This is like way more interaction than we expected, even from the last chapter. So this is showing that Beerus does care.
I imagine that Beerus' own training may look like that, to throw really heavy stuff at him. Like again, people. I understand that people wanted, a proper conflict, but it just like I don't know. I like the nonchalance of how Beerus threw this at. Oh, and by the way, it was me. I destroyed your planet, to show what are you going to do about this little monkey.
Yeah, and it just shows that it doesn't really fill him with that much guilt, him doing all this.
No, but I think that at some level it is a sign of respect for Vegeta, but he doesn't show that outright, like he feels that Vegeta is ready to get that training, but it's not going to be a nice training. It's not going to be, I don't want to say shoulder patting with Whis, because Whis can be also kind of harsh, but Whis praises you when you do, when you progress. Yeah, but with Beerus, mostly tears.
Oh, yeah. This is just like with Kid Gohan and Piccolo the first time they started training. It's like Piccolo was completely ruthless with Kid Gohan. So this is just going to be an equivalent of that. It's essentially Beerus just going dodge and stuff like that.
And it's pretty ironic because it's the way of training of how, Vegeta trained both Trunkses, really.
It'll be a test whether Vegeta can, take as well as give, really. If he can actually take his own rhetoric, when it's being dealt to him by another person.
Exactly. Again, I know that you guys might be, disappointed, but I feel that this will grow into something that it isn't, just to get it out of the way. I feel that it's a big thing of that chapter.
Yeah. One last thing I'd like to touch upon, and this is something that you brought up to me, and it's something really true, is that for the first time in forever with Dragon Ball, we're not really sure who the bad guys are. Like, we don't know. Like, we have inklings about some people, but it's complicated. Like, with Granolah, we think, oh, is he going to be the bad guy? Maybe, but we don't know. Could be a fallen hero. With the Heaters, you think they're going to be the crooks and just like, Bojack's crew facsimile, but no, they actually have some kind of means of compassion and going the extra mile. Yeah, sure. They like things to make a profit and personal greed and all that stuff, but they don't half-ass a job. Like with the Shigarians, they could have just like sold the planet to them and left them to it. But no, they helped, get it up to code and stuff like that. And they cared. They actually were like very shrewd. And I suppose, really, I know that some people could like convey this as, oh, they're only being nice to the Shigarians because that means they can get information from them and maybe have like trading with them in the fullness of time. But in a way, that's true. But it could also just, they're a customer. You don't scrimp on a job. That's probably something the Heaters tell you. Knowledge is power. And the best thing is just to have good reputations and good standing. They
are more down to earth, bad guys than we get usual. Yeah, you totally understand them. They are, again, like those characters are much more realistic in a way that most of the stuff we get in Dragon Ball. It's really weird after, having Moro, who was very bombastic. I am the ultimate being in the universe, which again, it was cool. I liked Moro. And before that, you had Jiren and Zamasu, who both failed at their respective categories. And then you have that, pretty well-crafted micro world that it feels that it was outside of the sights of our character when everything was rather simple, And you see around and, oh boy, like the Dragon Ball universe isn't that simple in terms of morality. There's a lot of gray area.
Yeah. And I do like the parallel about how the Heaters discover the Dragon Balls. They hear about through indirect communications. That's how Frieza discovered them, through intel and knowledge. And I do like the fact that, now they're being actually really crafty and clever by saying, oh, it turns out we don't actually need to go to Zuno after all. We got a free question. We got a free question by watching 7-3. And it is sad to see 7-3 being just like, like the butter robot from Rick and Morty. I am here to be a tape recorder and that's it. I feel like it's going to take him ages to be able to get to a position where he can either escape or become a factor in the series.
I feel that it will end up like when Granolah will go for hitters, because of course he will. Like, come on, Himai 373.
Well, he got made a joke out of by Ilek. So of course, no, gas. He got made a fool of. So as we've said, it's going to be conveyed that Gas is going to have a rematch with Granolah and it's not going to end well.
Also, to me, like one of the more interesting things is I wonder what did Saganbo and the other Moro goons asked of Zuno. I think it was pre imprisonment because they are not wearing their uniforms, but I wonder why they bothered Zuno.
Yeah, and we do have to remember that Zuno gives you each person one question. So each person, and if there's a whole group of them there, they can just pick what questions they're going to ask, and they can have tons of them. It stands to reason why it would be recorded, because 7-3 is a robot. So if he can record powers and techniques, surely having, audio and video recording capabilities is far within reason. So it makes sense. It does. But it does feel very convenient, yes. But again, it's tempered with logic. It's in like, yeah, it does make sense. So it's reasonable. And sometimes with Dragon Ball, especially now in this arc, you don't need it to be like completely awesome, amazing, and hype-inducing. It just needs to make sense. I think we can bring this to a conclusion, and all I gotta say is that the last 3 chapters for Super have been some of the best that I've seen in this sequence. Like, hat trick, 3 in a row, 3 for 3. It's been really good. And I feel like the next one will be probably even better, or it might be a complete catastrophe.
Yeah, it's the most important one they have so far. If they just will go for, oh yeah, I'm granting you the biggest power. But you know, by the way, this chapter was constructed, and you know, like the structure feels, I don't think it will happen.
If it did get carried out, they would have had Granolah suddenly powering up and feeling amazing and stuff like that, and the cliffhanger would have been, well, what does he do next with it? Then why, if it turns out that, oh, he just says the wish, and then you don't know what happens next, it's going to be like the dragon will just go, that is beyond my power. I cannot do this. You did say this to me, and this is actually really, really interesting in that, what is Monaito going to think about this? Like, he might die of a broken heart. You came up with this, and I'm like, as soon as you told me, it was like, oh, wow. That's like, ow. You feel sorry for this old man.
Alternatively, you know, he can die during the wish before the dragon manages to grant it, because Monaito will wake up and realize that the Dragon Ball is gone.
Oh, of course, yeah. Because they did make a point. They did make a point saying that, oh, once I'm gone, that's it, no dragon. Oh, of course. That is really true. Because, I mean, what else can Monaito do? Because he's 500 years old. He's not going to be going around anytime soon. He's not going to be traveling with Granolah. So his point there is to show that Granolah had a companion, then he dies. Granolah has nobody except for Oatmeal, who we don't know what he is, or she, or it. But, you know, we'll find out eventually. But, yeah, there's lots of probabilities. Now you say that, oh, Monaito might die. It's like, oh, okay. Well, that just throws even more intrigue into it.
I just want to say one thing about Oatmeal before we finish. After, you know, a lot of those little morality questions, I think that Oatmeal is a person and not I don't know, like I feel that you know, that oh, I don't think we should do this, you know, like it might be a machine trying to learn about morality, but I feel that this may be a creature. And, you know, thinking about all of this and all that Toriyama subversions, it may be just a really tiny creature living in the goggles.
Or it could be like a Al Elric thing of like the soul of a Cerulean who got downloaded into the goggles. Could be. But maybe at least at one point was a person. This is the thing. We're getting excited by so many questions and intrigue. This is so unusual for Dragon Ball, and I love it. It's great. That just about does it for this episode on Up of the Lookout. So thank you so much for those who have been listening. If you'd like to help become a caretaker of the Lookout to help support the series, do check out marsico.cc/lookout for more information. So until next time, everyone, be sure to stay safe out there and keep watching the Dragon Balls. Ta-ra!
Bye.